Hey guys, welcome back to NASA's Thread. So today we'll be learning how to make a palazzo trouser with jean material. For this tutorial, I have 2 yards of this fabric, my jean fabric. Okay, you can see my fabric has like two parts. So if you have one like this, you can decide on which point to use. So I'm gonna head to fold it into two because I want to cut my front piece first. And I've marked my starting line, my hip point, my crouch line, and then knee point and the full length of this. Okay, so to get your crouch line, just go ahead and divide your round hip by 4. Okay, whatever you get, you can use that. So what I'm doing right now is just marking, more like shaping for my trouser. So at the top part, that's the waist part, sorry, that was not visible. I took 1 inch at the top part. At the knee point, I took 1.5, and then at the full length, I also took 1.5 inch. Now, because it is a palazzo, it is free. Okay, I want mine to be free, all right? So, what I'm going to do is to make a connection from the knee point into the hip line so that the line will terminate, this line I'm connecting now will terminate at the hip line. Okay, you can see the one I've made from the top part of this, that's the waist area. So I'm just going to use my hip curve to connect this to the point at the knee area. All right, so I'm just basically doing a shaping. You'll see how this looks like at the end of the day. Okay, so you're going to have this. So whatever measurement you're using, ensure it terminates at that point, the hip point. All right, so from the line I've marked, I'm going ahead to mark my round waist divided by 4. Okay, I marked that down, which is 7.5. I added my dart allowance, and then for my zip allowance, I'm going with 3 inches for my zip allowance. That's because the zip is going to sit at the front. Okay, we're not using a side zip for this, it's going to be a front zip. Okay, so I went ahead to mark my round hip divided by 4, which is 10. Then on my crouch line, I'm also going ahead to mark my upper thigh measurement. Okay, that's the point that meets my crouch area. So I have 25 there, so I divided that by 2 instead. Okay, unlike the other measurements for the waist and the hip that is divided by 4, the measurement for your upper thigh should be divided by 2. Okay, so I'm just making my connection now. Right, to get the curve, I will just extend the line from the waist area. I'll extend it down from that point so I can get my accurate curve. Okay, and at that point, I will make a measurement upwards by 1 inch. This is because I want to get a accurate curve for this end. Okay, so I'm just making my connection that way. So the next thing I want to do is to make the connections for the full length of this. Remember I said it's a palazzo trouser, so it's free. So you can decide to use use your round knee measurements and then divide that by 2, place that down, or decide to do what I'm doing. Like me, I'm using the same measurement I have around my upper thigh for the full length measurement of this. Okay, so I marked 12.5 inch at the full length at the knee area. So I'm just connecting together. So if you don't want yours to be as wide as mine, to be as open as mine, you can go ahead to reduce the measurement you have around these areas so that they will not be too wild. Okay, so I hope you understand that. So I'm just going to connect this point to the crouch line. So this is what you're meant to have at the end of the day. By the time you finish, it's meant to look like this. Okay, remember when you're cutting out, remember not to cut out your zipper allowance. Okay, like I said, the zip sits in front, so I'll just cut this out to show you what it looks like. You can see I didn't cut out my zipper allowance because I'll need a space for my zip. All right, so I've gone ahead to cut it out, and this is what we have at the end of the day. This is what it looks like. This part is going to be our zip allowance. So I've gone ahead to place this on another fabric, like another part, so that I can cut my back piece. Now I place it on just one piece. Okay, So after doing this, I'll go ahead and replicate it. So from the waistline, that's the waist area, I'm going to be adding an allowance of 2 inches. Okay, the back part is going to be bigger than the front. We're going to have our allowances at that point. Okay, at the hip area, I'm also going to do that. Okay, so for the flap or the crouch, sorry, I didn't mention this earlier. Um, there's also a way to get another way to get your flap measurement. All right, um, you can go ahead, measure it while you're standing, measure in between your legs, just below your navel point. Whatever you have from that, okay, divide it by 2 and then minus 1. So that was the measurement I used for this. So I just went ahead to do that, okay. So for the flap area here, for the back piece, I didn't use 2 inch of an allowance like I used at the other places. I used 3 inches of an allowance. I use 3 inches allowance for the flap area. Okay, so whatever you get for yours, depending on your size. Okay, if you do the measurement of you standing and then taking the measurement in between your legs to below your navel, after doing that, divide your measurement by 2. Whatever you get, minus 1 inch from that. Okay, and then use the remaining to mark your front piece. Okay, like for me, I had 24 after I did that measurement. Okay, 24 divided by 2 is 12, and then I minus that and I marked the rest down. Okay, so I hope you understand that. So just that. So I'm using the same method I used to get the flap curve for the front to get that off the back. Okay, so I just connected the line together, went all by 1 inch, and I'm just going to use my free hand to curve it down. All right, so we can get this. I hope you understand everything I'm trying to say. Okay, so the flap area of the back is extended by 1 inch extra. Okay, so if you're on the bigger side, the allowance you should use for your back should be 2.5 inch. Okay, so it will be more comfortable. So from that area, I went up by 2 inches. Sorry, that would be the increase. Now because the back is where we have our butt, so it needs extra allowance for it to sit. Okay, so I'm just going to slant it from that area to nothing to meet the other end of this. Okay, so make sure you take note of where I did the 2 inches increase. It is around the area where we have the zip allowance. Okay, so this is what we have at the end of the day. This will be our back piece. So I'll go ahead to cut it out, and please ensure when you're adding your allowances for the waist area, ensure you fold in your zip allowance. Okay, don't take don't take your measurement from the zip area. Okay, that's the zip allowance we added for the front. Don't take your measurement from that end. Fold it in before you add your 2 inch or 2.5 inch, depending on your size. All right, so I'm just going to cut this out for us to see. So this is what we have at the end of the day. This is our piece. I'll go ahead to cut out another piece to make it 2 piece for the back. All right, so the next thing I want to do is to mark my dart position. So my bust span is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5, but I went ahead to mark 4 inch because I added an allowance of 0.5 inch to that. I'm sorry, so I just added 0.5 inch to that. So whatever is your bust span, divide by 2, so you can get. Okay, so the next thing I want to get is my pocket. I just have a rectangular piece. I have about 2 of this that are actually quite long. So at the end there, I just made a little curve because I didn't want this to be all rectangular. All right, you can see me trying to make a little curve at that end for my pocket. Okay, I didn't want to add the cutting process to this because I didn't want the video to be too long. Okay, so I just went ahead to cut it out to give it a little shape. So to get your rectangular piece, just measure the length you want and your width. Okay, so this is what it looks like at the end of the day. You can see the curve there, and I have my 2 piece, like I said, each for each side of the pocket. So I'll be adding a back pocket to this. Okay, so I'm gonna head to also cut out this. Okay, cut out my rectangular piece. Then from the bottom, I went up by 1 inch because I want to give it a certain curve at the end. So I'm going to get the midpoint of this. Now for this one, the width of the pocket I used is 6 inches. For yours, you can decide to use 6 or just something moderate. Let it not be too big. Okay. I'm sorry I didn't put the video of how I cut this out. Okay. So, but this is what I have at the end of the day. So I just wanted it to have a little curve because I want to have like two back pockets, added two back pockets for this. All right. So I'm just going to trim out the unwanted parts where the parts I will not be using. So this is what I have. So you can see it looks like this. I'll just split open this part. Now like I said, ensure you're not using too much. This is what we have two pieces. You can see the shape of it. So I want to cut out the pocket area. Now I'm not adding anything to this, like any wording, gum stain or anything. So I'll not be adding anything like that to this. I'm just going to make a mark. Okay, I went ahead to mark 3 inches for the width and then 6 inches for the length of my pocket. That's more like my pocket opening where my hands are going to enter for this. So after making that mark, I made a connection with my chalk and my roll. So I just went ahead to cut out that part because I will not be needing that area. So I'll do the same thing for the pocket piece I'm using. I mark 3 inches for the width and then 6 inches for the length, and I'm going to connect both of them together, and then I will just cut it out because I will not be needing it. All right. So you can see this is what we have. All right. So the first thing I'll do is to put in my dart. Okay, my dart will just be 2 inches long. You can try to do your shorter. It's a jean fabric, so we don't need our darts to be too long. Okay, so you can try to make it 2 inches long. Two. So I marked 3 inches here, but I went ahead to just use 2 inches. Like I said, it should just be short. You can decide to do it longer. Okay, but I don't think to look so nice because it's a jean fabric. So I'll just place this down here like this, front facing front, and then stitch it down. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is to fix my back pocket to this. Okay, so to fix this, I went ahead to mark the midpoint of my back pocket. So I'm fixing the back pocket to the back part of my jean fabric. I've already gone ahead to put in my dart. So to know the position for where I'll put in my pocket, I'm going to take my measurements. All right, so I have 12 inches. So if I divide that by 2, is 6. So 6 inches work is going to work better. That's like the midpoint of the back piece of my trouser. And then from the top part, I'm going to measure how low I want this. Now remember, I'll be using a band of about 2 inches for the top part. So I just went ahead to um measure from there, okay, to how I want my pocket to be. Now my hip point is 8 inches, so I didn't want it to start from the hip, my hip point area to be too low for me. So I used 5 inches to mark this out. Okay, so the entire grammar I'm speaking is just 6 inches for the width, okay, the width point, and then 5 inches for the length point. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and fold the top part of this. I'll just stitch it down. I'm actually using yellow gold fabric. I don't know what I'll call that color. So I'm just using it down. I just wanted this to have a little bit jean effect, to feel as if it's a jean fabric, jean material, like already made though. So I'm going to pin this down midpoint to midpoint, okay, to ensure that they are matching before I go ahead and stitch it down. So I've pinned that down. So I'll just stitch it down. To stitch it down, I'll just be folding in the edges of the part. You want to take your time at this point, stitch it down, right? Don't be in a hurry so that you're not doing this over and over again. Take your time so you can stitch it down properly. Just stitch it down so that you don't have any ends running out. So just fold in your ends, stitch it down, fold in your ends, and stitch it down. Okay, just continue doing that gradually. Okay, so I experienced a little issue doing this. Okay, it was actually Quite hard, I'll say. It's not hard. It was just posing a little bit of a problem while I was doing this. Okay. I had to adjust, fix it, and hmm, but we conquered. So I went ahead to make a double stitch. After stitching the first one, I went ahead to do another one. Okay, with just a little bit distance from the first one. Okay, so this is what I have at the end of the day. You can see this done that nice. I'll repeat the same thing for the second one. So I've done I've done the front part. I fixed my pocket. I also stop stitched on it. All right, and then I closed the back part of it together, ensured they were equal, and stitched it down. So this is the front piece. All right, and this is the other part of the front piece. I've done the same thing. Okay, put in my dart and then close down my pocket. Okay, well, I advise you, your pockets should be longer, like the depth of the pocket should be longer, okay? And this is the back piece after I finished doing that. So this is what I have. You can see it came out looking nice, okay? It's looking good already. So once to start joining this together, I'll place my back piece down. So I'm placing this front facing front. Now I'm going to place where I have the pocket area, like the front pocket area, to the other end. Okay, so this is how you're meant to place this down. It's meant to look this way. Okay, and I'll go ahead and stitch it down with half of an inch at that end. So I've stitched it down. I did the same thing for both piece. All right, so this is one piece of it, and I top stitch at that area. So my top stitching stopped exactly at my hip point, right? So I stitched from the waist area down to the hip point. So it looks like this. So I'll bring in the other piece after I finish working on it. I'll place this together. So I'm placing the front piece to front piece, back piece to back piece. So we can go ahead and stitch it down, right? You want to ensure you arrange this properly so that they're both equal, they're both in the same parts. You don't want one to be um outside while the other one is inside. Okay, so I want to make a stitch from this end. I'll make a measurement from that point. Okay, so I went ahead to measure from the waist area down. I measured about 7 inches. Okay, and then I'll just stitch it down. I just made a curve there, so I'll stitch it down from that point where I marked to the other end with half of an inch. Okay, that's my front piece. So I'll just go ahead and stitch that down. Then after doing that, before I go ahead to do that, sorry, for the back piece, remember I added 2 inch of an allowance to this. Okay, so I'll just take my measurement so I'll know what I have left that I will use to stitch this down. Now the trouser I'm making, this palazzo trouser I'm making, I want to be able to wear this with a belt if needed be. So I didn't want it to be too tight around my waist. Okay, so I just went ahead to take my measurements, ensured I had like a little bit, okay, of an allowance. Okay, I was trying to ensure I had exactly what I need. Okay, so for the top part, that's the waist area, I just marked 2 inches. I'll be using that to stitch it down at that area because the fabric I'm working with actually stretches a little bit, so it's still going to fit me at the end of the day. So I'll just go ahead, marked it down. I marked 2 inches down that I'll be using to stitch it down. Then for the hip area, I'll just use 1 inch for that. So I'm just making a curve from that end down to the crouch area. So I'll go ahead and stitch both of them down. So yeah, I've done that. This is what I have. I also stop stitch on it. Okay, and then on the back part of it, I stitched it down. You can see the allowance we have inside. This is what it looks like. All right, so I'll turn this over to the wrong side so we can stitch the both of them together. So to stitch it together, you place it flap facing flap. Okay, you want to ensure that the lines of your flaps, they are aligning, right? So I'll go ahead and pin it down. Ensure that they are aligning, okay? So you don't have one line running away from the other one, okay? So place it this way, and then I'll stitch it down at this end, and also make a stitch at the other end, right? So just stitch it down at that end and then stitch it down at the other end. So I want to fix my zipper. I'm using a long zip for this. Okay, I will advise you use a short zip. I didn't have a short zip while I was doing this. Okay, so to stitch it down, I'm sorry, I'll just place this right on the spot I made my joining for the front. Now remember our zip is for the front, not for the back. So I'll place it down on that end right there. Ensure the lines are matching with where you want to stitch down. Okay, because you don't need it to be over. If it's possible, go ahead and pin it down throughout so they are not moving. Okay, I had to pin my down because I was experiencing a little bit of difficulty while fixing this down. So I had to pin it down. So ensure you also pin it down if you also experience some difficulty. Okay, and like I said, use a short iron tip. Okay, it's better off, it's safer. So I just pinned that down and then made my stitch, and this is what I have at the end of the day after doing that. All right, so to stitch the other end, unlike this one we just folded it down and then stitch at the point where we made a stitch. We need a fly cover for this, so we're not going to be doing the same thing for this other end. I'm just going to adjust this. Okay, so I'm using half of what we have for this other piece. All right, so that you know what to do, you can just use half of it. It's actually half of it. You can fold it into two so you know where the half is, and then place the other part of your zip on that end, pin it down, and then stitch. All right, so we're using half of it, half of the allowance for the zipper on the other end. Now the fly cover for this, it's coming at the left side. All right, it's on the left side of this. That is where it's going to sit. So ensure you're placing this right. Okay, all right, sorry about that. It's on the right side. I'm sorry, the fly cover is on the right side of this. Okay, so ensure you're placing it rightly. So you can decide to place it on the left. I don't know if there's a rule that states that it has to be on the left or on the right. Okay, so you can decide to place it on whatever area, but mine is on the right. So I just went ahead to stitch down my zip. Okay, like I said, it is better using a short zip for this so you don't waste it. And after doing that, this is what I have after I stitched it down. It looks this way after I stitched it down. Okay, you want to ensure you can easily open this up. Okay, so for the remaining allowance we have there at the front, which is going to be our fly cover, this is what we're going to have. So I've gone ahead to cut out the excess zip because I'll not be needing this. So I just made a mark from that end. Okay, and I'll go ahead to stitch it down. So I've stitched it down. I even made 2 stitches for it. You can see this is what our fly cover looks like at the end of the day, right? It looks nice. Okay, so we want to fix our band for this. I've gone ahead to cut out a piece for my band. The length is as much as my waist. Okay, remember earlier I was saying I will use a band of 2 inches. I changed my mind on that. Okay, because I cut out a band of 3 inch. By the time I fold this down, I should have 1.5 inch. I didn't want this to be too much. All right, so I'll be placing this from the inside. I'm going to turn my band over. I'm not going to place it from one side and stitch it down. So I'll place this from the inside. Okay, ensure that I'm lining at that end, and then I will stitch it down throughout. All right, and if you're seeing this channel for the first time, okay, please subscribe, turn on your notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I post a new video. And if you have not subscribed but you're always coming to this channel, please subscribe. Okay, ensure to like and drop your comments, right? And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for coming back to watch my videos. Thank you for coming back to check on the channel. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so be notified whenever I post a new video. Okay, I have really good stuffs coming up. All right, so ensure you check up on the channel. So let's get right back into this. So I just went ahead to fold the tip area of this so I can stitch it down, right? So that by the time I'm turning this over to stitch out the front, that part will not be open. All right, I hope you understand. So this is what I just did. This is what I'm saying. Okay, so I stitch down that area so that by the time I'm stitching this other area, it will not look that to not look open. So I did the same thing for the other end, and after doing that, I'm just folding the top part closed, and then I'm just stitching this down so that to give this a very good look. Okay, I'm just stitching down my band to cover the front part. So I stitched it down. I went ahead to even make a top stitch on this to make it look better. Okay, so we're almost through with this, but we want to, like I said, I want to wear my belt with this. So I want to make my belt holder. So I went ahead to cut out a piece of about 1 inches. The width of this is 1 inches. As long as it can be so that it will serve for you. So I'm just folding this, fold one end in, fold one end in, and then I'm going to stitch it down throughout so that I can get the pieces I need for my belt holder. So I just got a piece, folded one end in, folded one end in, and then I'm stitching it down, right? So I went ahead to make a double stitch on it because I want it to have a more relaxed feel. So this is what it looks like after that. Okay, you can see it looks nice, came out looking quite good. Okay, so for us to do this, well, we need to know the position of where our belt holders are going to sit. So the first thing that you should know is that we'll be placing a button for this. So the first thing I did was to measure from the point where my button is going to stop. Okay, so I need to know what to do. Then from the pocket area, I measured 1 inches out, right? And I'm doing the same thing for the other part. So this is the front part of the pocket. So we'll have one belt holder at the middle point. Then from the seam allowance at the middle, I went ahead to measure about 1.5 inch from 1.5 inch difference. I'm sorry. I went ahead to measure 1.5 inch difference. So I'm doing the same thing to the other end. Okay, just measured 1.5 inch difference from the same allowance. Okay, that's the position it's going to sit. So that means we need to have 5 of this. Okay, so for the length of the belt holder, I'm using 3 inches for my length. So I'm just going to mark 3 inches into 5 places. So if you're using 2.5 inch for that, make sure you have 2.5 inch into 5 places, depending on how many belt holder points you marked on your trouser. I hope you understand that. So I just went ahead to mark this. All right, so I had enough for what I need and a little excess. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and cut it out by the time I finish marking this, right? Like I said, I'm using 3 inches, so you can also use 2.5 inch for yours. So I'll just go ahead and cut them out. So I'll have these pieces. So this is it. I have 5 of them. Now to place this, I'll pick one and show you how to do this, right? So I'll just place, you need to tuck in the rough edge inside, okay? This is how it's going to look like by the time you finish stitching this down. Okay, so you place it this way, stitch it down, and then place it the other way and stitch it down, right? So I'll just stitch one of this first and show you what I have at the end of the day. So you want to be careful while stitching this down. Okay, this is another difficult part in this. So you can see this is what you're going to have. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing for the other parts. So I've done that. You can see we have our 5 belt holders in place. Okay, this trouser looks good, right? It looks quite good. So we want to, that point there, what I'll be doing that later is to put in my button and the button opening. Okay, so the part with the flap is where you have your button opening, then the other end should have your button. Please don't forget that. Okay, the part with the flap should have the button opening. Okay, then the other part should have the button itself. So we want to work on the hem of the trouser. I didn't say this earlier, but I added allowance for this, okay, while I was cutting out this. So I'll just go ahead and fold it in. The allowance I added for this was about it was about 1.5 inch of an allowance. Okay. So I will just use that allowance I added. I've already gone ahead to weave the edge of this. So I weaved every part of this trouser. I didn't mention that earlier. So I'll just use that. Instead of folding this twice, I'll fold it once in and then I'll stitch it down, right? So let me show you what everything I'm saying, what it entails exactly. So I'll just fold it in, ensure I'm using that allowance I added, fold this in at that end, and then I will stitch it down throughout. Okay, while I'm stitching, I'm adjusting, ensuring I have that allowance. I'll just go ahead and stitch it down throughout. So the thing I did at this end, like, is to make a double stitch for it. Instead of just having one, I went ahead to double stitch. So I have like two lines showing with a little difference between both of them, right? So after doing that, I'll go ahead and do the same for the other piece. So that will be all for this. This is okay. This